One of the most interesting pathogens in modern zombie films is the ZQN virus from I Am a Hero. These zombies aren't the usual kind seen in other movies, slow and easy to evade. No, they are morbid and nightmarish beings who will do anything to eat you, while repeating senseless phrases as if they were trapped in a loop they can't wake up from. In the film, we see the chaos from the streets, desperate decisions, grotesque mutations, and infected individuals who are tougher than they seem. Although the movie doesn't explain it, in Kengo Hanazawa's manga, something more intricate is suggested than a virus gone out of control. He speaks of an alien invasion, not the kind that turns cities to ashes like in Independence Day, but the kind that wants our infrastructure intact and prefers to replace us rather than eliminate us. That's why, in this world, the ZQN virus doesn't just kill the infected, it assimilates them and turns them into its tools. The infection spreads like a network. At first it seems random, but soon recognizable patterns emerge. For example, the infected who repeat movements, phrases, or actions. And what seems like just a mindless zombie horde behaves like a single organism, a hive mind with no visible leader, but a shared logic. Over time, their bodies synchronize and fuse to create gigantic creatures. Hideo Suzuki, our protagonist, is a failed manga artist who hadn't even gotten over a breakup when the world began to collapse. His girlfriend, Teko, is one of the first infected we see transforming on camera. Her face deformed, repeating phrases she once told him, and with unnatural strength. Shortly after, he meets Hiromi, a teenage girl who had been bitten by a baby ZQN, who instead of fully turning, ends up trapped between two states. She's not fully infected, but she's no longer human either. The virus, known as ZQN, also carries meaning in its name. In the manga, it appears as a supposed military designation, but in Japanese slang, ZQN, pronounced Zokyun, comes from a phonetic joke on the word do-kyun, which is an insult used to call someone an idiot or a delinquent, replacing the D with the Z of zombie. Ironically, what began as an internet joke became canon in this world. One of the ZQN virus's peculiarities is its mode of transmission, which generally spreads through bites, blood splashes, or fluids on mucous surfaces like the eyes and nasal passages, in addition to open wounds. But what sets it apart from many others in the genre is its inconsistent infection time. Some infected turn in minutes, others hold on for hours, as if their minds were still fighting to prevail. The first symptoms are not physical, they are emotional and psychological. The infected begins to show extreme anxiety, along with persistent paranoia and discomfort. Then the more visible symptoms appear. The veins in the neck turn black, the eyes take on a sickly green color with reddish reflections, and speech accelerates to the point of distortion, as if thought and mouth were no longer synchronized. Because of this, they repeat long and sometimes incoherent phrases. The transformation includes muscle spasms, loss of balance, and tremors. In extreme cases, the face swells as if a tumor were pushing from within, giving the head a grotesque shape. The heart can stop completely, and yet the body keeps functioning. But why? Because the virus doesn't rely on the systems that normally keep the body functional. In this universe, what matters is the brainstem. As long as that nerve base remains intact, the creature will move, attack, and infect. That's why the classic headshot sometimes is not enough. You have to destroy the base of the skull or resort to fire. During the initial outbreak, rumors circulated that the virus was airborne, that it contaminated water, and that corpses spread the virus from mass graves. But in reality, and in both the film and the manga, transmission remains direct. Blood, bite, and fluids. Everything else is a myth. But one trait that defines the ZQN is that it doesn't completely erase the mind. Instead, it leaves fragments of memory echoing. The infected continues saying things from their previous life. Examples of this include the taxi driver who boasts of not having had accidents or tickets in 30 years, the girlfriend who repeats phrases from her relationship, the office worker who raises her hand to hail a taxi that will never arrive, or the businessman who talks on the phone. Physically, the virus imposes new physiological rules on the infected. Fear disappears, pain doesn't stop them, and perseverance becomes mechanical. The ZQNs are distracted by loud noises and rush en masse to any sound source. bumping into other infected and unintentionally forming blockades. Luckily for the protagonist, most ZQNs don't climb, and generally don't use tools. As I mentioned before during this apocalypse, the reason many die believing they landed a perfect shot to the head is simple. The virus rearranges anatomical priorities. The nervous system adapts to protect the brainstem, and that's why blowing off half an infected person's head won't be enough, because they'll still keep going if the base remains intact. The only truly effective method is to destroy that point. Moreover, the virus is not limited to infecting or maintaining basic functions. It restructures bones, muscles, and tendons to optimize the host. Some infected exhibit grotesque mutations, apparently developed based on their previous abilities. The most common is a dislocated jaw that opens on a hinge like that of a snake. There's also hypertrophy of the limbs, which grants excessive strength, enough to rip off doors, crush skulls, or yeet people effortlessly. Another frequent mutation is anomalous locomotion, seen in infected that walk on all fours with an almost arachnid coordination, ideal for crawling under cars, through vents or narrow staircases, making them quite dangerous in ambushes. The most terrifying case of these mutations is that of the college athlete. He was already strong and fast in life, but after infection, his body mutated to enhance those same abilities through his training habits. Now he runs faster, jumps higher, and even learns to dodge bullets. The cause of this isn't intentional. It's that the virus uses the host's muscle memory and basically pumps it full of steroids. The result is a special kind of zombie. The same happens with firefighters, acrobats, fighters, even musicians or dancers. What used to be skills now become weapons, and in the same way the virus learns. Not on a rational level, but through repetition. And this is a problem for any survivor, since over time, gunshots will make them react, blows will teach them to avoid the trajectory, and the ZQN will adapt. On a sensory level, the average ZQN responds to noise, smell, and movement. The sense of smell continues to function with considerable precision. Their hearing can detect specific sources, and vision, although altered, does not prevent hunting. The hive mind, although not seen in the movie, begins like an echo. First, the zombies repeat phrases in unison. Then they synchronize their movements and finally merge, creating organic corridors that channel the living into traps. When that hive matures, fused masses appear, towers of flesh that moan, and giant monsters formed from the union of hundreds of bodies. In addition to the hive mind of this virus, something unexpected emerges: hybrids. These are not immune, and they are not entirely well, but they are not zombies either, because the virus didn't complete the infection process in the body. One of the first hybrids we see, as I mentioned earlier, is Hiromi, a teenage girl who was bitten by an infected baby. Instead of collapsing from the infection, she remains suspended in an intermediate state. At first glance, she doesn't seem like a threat, but a visible trait of the virus appears in her gaze, with one of her eyes acquiring the typical green glow of the ZQN, and her speech is reduced to a group of phrases from her past life. But her body shows no other visible change, yet she gains superhuman strength, accelerated healing, and can move among the infected without being attacked. When an arrow is driven into her head, she doesn't die. She simply falls into a recovery state. Hours later, she gets up as if someone had restarted her. When a ZQN attacks Hideo, Hiromi breaks its neck and sends it flying with a single blow, then rips off its limbs. She doesn't do it out of rage or consciously. She does it because her body, reconfigured, responds to a different logic. The manga offers an explanation for this. Hybrids like Hiromi could be queen bees, interfaces created by the invaders to direct the hive without needing to expose their true form. If the aliens are few or cannot exist in our atmosphere, they need intermediaries, and Hiromi, being neither fully human nor fully ZQN, is the biological bridge for them. Because of this, the hive mind ignores her and doesn't see her as food. In a collapsed world, this has important social implications. Because for humans, a hybrid isn't truly trustworthy, because they don't speak, they don't give explanations, they change moods suddenly and fall asleep without warning. And when they wake up, they can kill a person with little effort. In a shelter with minimal rules and improvised weapons, such a being is a constant threat. And with this, we reach the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, remember to give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and activate the notification bell to stay up to date with my new videos. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I think you'll love. Check it out.